Hi there, welcome to another Team Clueless Battle Report. Paul and I are today playing a mission called The Bank Job. We have got to steal some loot that is hidden in this vault down here behind this big secure door in the centre of an Imperial city. Paul's evil force of marauding Eldar have come to steal the hard-earned money of the citizens of the Imperium, so my heroic Space Marines are going to go in there and liberate the gold or diamonds or whatever it is inside and take it back to our chapter coffers to keep safe, as you were. As you can see, we're playing on quite a city battlefield today. We've got a nice bit of road and there are loads of ruined buildings lying around. The building in the centre, the Zone Mortalis, not using the Zone Mortalis rules, it's obviously quite a small Zone Mortalis, but we are counting all of the solid walls on here as being very tall, so you can't draw line of sight over them. You can see through it, obviously, when you can get down there. Well, imagine the doors of this big bank vault are all smashed in. So that's in the centre there. There are two objectives in play. There is one over here and one over there. They're scored kind of like maelstrom mission objectives. You score 1 point at the end of each player turn if you control it, or if you control it on your own player turn. There are a few other maelstrom-like objectives that you can score during the game. If you have two of your units on your opponent's side of the battlefield in their 12-inch deployment zone, at the end of one of your turns you score a victory point. If you manage to kill one of the opponent's units in close combat, shooting, or the psychic phase in your turn, then you score 1 victory point for each of those phases that you managed to destroy the unit in. I hope that makes sense. And if you manage to destroy 3 of an opponent's units using one of those particular methods, then you get 2 victory points instead. So there's kind of like a maelstrom way of scoring victory points as you go along, but the main way of getting victory points is loot. Whenever one of your models ends one of its shooting movement phases, or if it runs into the vault, it can pick up a bit of loot. A unit can only have 1 bit of loot held by a model at a time, and they're kind of treated as relics, but there's a bit more freedom in how you can move with them. Models are allowed to run with them, and you can pick up dropped bits of loot at the end of the movement phase, at the end of the shooting phase if you run onto them, and also after close combat. If you win a close combat, you can pick up any loot that has been discarded by killed models in said close combat. Walkers are also allowed to pick them up, but we don't have any walkers today. If at the end of the game one of your models holds a piece of loot, you get 3 victory points, and if that model of yours is inside your own deployment zone, you get an extra bonus victory point as you're trying to evacuate the loot. Secondary objectives aren't used other than slay the warlord, which is worth its standard 1 point. Let's see what forces we're bringing. We're playing 1750 points today, and I have brought my Space Marine force. We are playing Ultramarines in red, as usual. Today we are being led by Chief Librarian Tigerius. He has felt on the strands of fate that the evil Eldar are coming, so he has arrived in the city to help. So he is there. He has brought along a few troop choices with him. We have a scout squad armed with bolt guns. The sergeant has a combi melter, and they're riding around in a land speeder storm with a heavy flamer. They're also equipped with camo cloaks. They're so good at camo that they are camouflaged that you can't even see them on the models, which is quite clever. Our other 2 troop choices are 2 tactical squads, 1 there and 1 there. This one has a plasma gun, combi plasma, and a las cannon, and this one over here has all the melter, multi-melter, melter gun, and combi melter. We have a squad of 9 stern guard. They have 2 heavy flamers in there. No combi weapons with there, ran out of points, and they are rocking around in a drop pod there, as are both the tactical squads. In heavy support, we brought a whirlwind and a stalker, both for cheap firepower, which is quite useful, and as always, a thunderfire cannon is most helpful. The Legion of the Damned are going to dive in and help the heroic Space Marines. They have also got all the melter. They have a melter gun, a combi melter, and a multi-melter. And lastly, we have the most overworked man in the Imperium, the Chapter Master of the White Scars. He is riding a bike. He's got a Thunder Hammer, Shield Eternal, an Auspex, and Artificer Armour. What a shock. And he is leading a squad of Grav bike troops. They have 2 Grav guns and 1 combi Grav. Okay, let's see what Paul has bought.
Here's my Eldar War host arrayed against the Blood Angels / Ultramarine /
White Scars.
White Scars having an identity crisis. We are led by the Phoenix Lord Karandras himself, who has arrived to lead this mostly aspect warrior based force. He of course has with him a unit of 10 striking scorpions, led by an Exarch with power claw, so that's 2 claws in that unit. There should be some snippy goodness. We have 2 units of 8 warp spiders, a unit of 10 swooping hawks, which have an Exarch, and the Exarch has the hit and run Exarch power. We've got a unit of 10 Howling Banshees, which are also led by an Exarch. The Exarch is carrying an Executioner. And then we have some Fire Dragons. The Fire Dragons have an Exarch with a Fire Pike, and he knows the Fast Shot Exarch power. And they're riding around in this Wave Serpent, which of course has scatter lasers, a shuriken cannon, and some hollow fields. The non-aspect warrior parts of this force are this unit of 10 rangers and this unit of 9 guardian jet bikes with 3 shuriken cannons, led by a warlock on a jet bike with a singing spear. The warlock knows Destructor and Conceal Reveal.
Oh, can you quickly add my psychic powers down, because I forgot to say them. So I have Force, obviously, Scryer's Gaze, which I didn't want, Misfortune, Perfect Timing, and Prescience.
So my warlock's feeling a little outgunned in the psychic department, but he'll do his best.
Okay, so this is our setup. I have got first turn, so I have deployed over here. I've bolstered this room with my Tech Marine. I've got him inside there is Thunderfire, and the Stalker is hiding behind the chair at the bottom there. The Whirlwind is here, and all the bikes are sitting in this ruin with the Chapter Master out front as a bullet catcher. That's what you do with your most important, most venerable Marine. You use him as a bullet catcher. These guys have scouted up to here, hoping Paul doesn't steal the initiative off me. So that Wave Serpent over there is going to make Swiss cheese out of my poor little Landspeeder Storm. That's all I've got deployed on the board at the minute. I've got 3 drop pods with the 2 tactical squads and the Stern Guard, and I've got the Legion of the Damned off the board. Paul has deployed a huge mass of Eldar infantry over here. We have a squad of warp spiders anchoring either side. The jet bikes are all along the back with the Wave Serpent in the middle there. The Howling Banshees occupying that ruin, and the Striking Scorpions have infiltrated forwards to take up residence on the side of the bank vault. In that building over there, you may not be able to pick them out due to their wonderful camouflage. He has his unit of what they call Rangers. Those ones there. Okay, so now Paul is going to attempt to steal the initiative on a 6.
On the crossroads?
On the crossroads, the most important part of the battlefield.
Not quite.
Not quite. I get to go first. Let's see what damage I can inflict. So, Space Marine turn 1. We moved up to get into position to run to the vault next turn, so my scouts had unloaded from their Landspeeder Storm and run into the cover here. I'd also moved all my bikes up, and they had taken a nice little hollow of the building there they'd hidden in, and the Chapter Master fired his orbital bombardment. Went flying up over the battlefield, smacked down on top of the warp spiders over there, and I think I killed 3 of them.
That's right.
Which was pretty nice. I scattered a little bit, but not very far. I then fired the Whirlwind, who was the star of the turn. He again fired straight up over here and landed on top of these tightly packed Striking Scorpions there, who were preparing to move inside. I managed to hit 9 of them, and then Paul rolled utterly crap on his saves, and I killed 6 of them, even though they got their 3-up armour. So that squad has been severely weakened, but it does still have both its power claws in the unit, so that's pretty sweet. We also drop podded in, so we drop podded over here because we wanted to get near this objective for scoring a point at the end of each turn. Both of my squads got out, and then they both attempted to run to get inside the building and up to the 2nd level for firing next turn, because this building has this kind of like iron cladding on the outside of it that stops you drawing line of sight through it. But unfortunately, both of them rolled a 2 on their run roll, so neither managed to get up to the higher level, so they both sequestered themselves inside the building. My Landspeeder Storm moved over here and unloaded with its Cerberus launcher and its heavy flamer, and managed to take out a couple of the warp spiders. And then my other drop pod had scattered a bit and landed at the edge of the table over here. Both squads of those have got out, and that's the Melter squad over there, because I couldn't really get them in range of the Wave Serpent. I decided to try and whittle down warp spiders, as they're one of my pet hates. So both squads unloaded, and they took out another 2 or 3 members. So that squad is reduced to 4 members for its warp spiders, but it passed its leadership test. But this one over here, that only lost 3 members, failed its leadership and jetted off the board like the cowardly Xeno they are. So a pretty good turn 1 for myself. Let's see how Paul responds.
Eldar turn 2. No, Eldar turn 1. So the jet bikes immediately jetted all the way across the board over and took up residence up in the roosting up here. Unfortunately, their warlock tried to cast, well, successfully cast Conceal in order to improve their cover save, but blew his own head up as the warp took its toll. So he scored that victory point this turn. Other people moved forward. The unfortunate Howling Banshees managed a 4 to then move through cover out of this building, and I got a 4 to run, which wasn't going to get me in the safety of here. So I re-rolled and then I rolled 3, which is a 6, and then I rolled a 1, which is a 4. So they didn't manage to get into the building either. So they're looking like they're in artillery fire range. And Karandras is urging them in so that he can follow them in. He's not at all happy about that situation. The fire dragons disembarked from the wave serpent to take out the land speeder, which was here, giving me my victory point for killing something in the shooting phase. The wave serpent turned around and shot 2 space marines. The combat squad they were with turned and fled, but they'll be back automatically next turn. These warp spiders moved up, took some cheeky shots into the building here, managed to kill another couple, was it?
You killed 3 in there, including a las cannon.
And then managed to run into these ruins for a bit of protection. And my rangers, who are roosting up in this building up here, took some shots at the tech marine and his artillery piece. We managed to do 1 wound to the artillery, but it's still operational, unfortunately, for his next turn. So that's the end of my turn 1.
Space Marine turn 2. So this time I decided let's make a move for the loot. For loot counters, we're using these nice little shiny gold beads. So if you can see in there, the chapter master sprinted in with his bike and grabbed himself a share of the loot. The scout squad has managed to snake its way with its run move around the squad of bikes, and this guy here who's crouching down protecting another bit of loot that he's picked up. Now I need to get them out of there and stop Paul getting any, and I think it'll be my game to lose. I opened fire with the rest of the bikes. Unfortunately, their grav guns are worse versus Howling Banshees than their bolt guns. So we fired our bolt guns, hit loads of times, but unfortunately Paul's crappy armour actually was pretty useful, and he only lost 2 of his Howling Banshees, so they're still near a full squad. Over here, our stern guard dropped in. I managed to cast the rending power on the squad from Tigerius, and we opened fire. I was hoping the rending hits might be able to get through Karandras's 2-up save. Unfortunately, the whole squad, I fired the 3-up armour beating normal bullets, but Karandras managed to tank so many of them, and I didn't get a single rend through either. So he's alive, as is the Exarch, who are the main damage dealers with their Initiative 6 power claws. So that's a little bit of a worry. Moving over here, I killed 2 fire dragons, 1 firing from this squad and 1 from the explosion that was the wave serpent. I had deep struck in my Legion of the Damned and they had opened up their melters. The wave serpent exploded and took 2 Legion of the Damned with it and 1 fire dragon, so I wasn't particularly pleased with that. This squad ran this way because the warp spiders that they were going to fire at in this ruin were wiped out. But up here I'd popped my tactical doctrine for my ultramarines this turn, and these guys were super accurate and managed to easily put down enough firepower to take out the 4 warp spiders. Moving around the back here, Paul had his big squad of jet bikes over here, and I really wanted to put some pain on them. I fired my thunderfire into them, got 5 wounds on, but he's got a 2-up cover save and a 3-up armour save this turn. I only managed to take out 1 of the jet bikes and decided to cut my loss at that point, because I'd also wasted my fire from my Stalker, although I say wasted, there's no good targets for it. It hadn't hit any of them. My Whirlwind fired over there, attempting to take out some of the scouts. I thought I might be able to get them to break with their not brilliant leadership, but I only managed to hit 1 of them with a wide scatter. So a pretty average turn for me this turn. How many victory points have I scored?
You scored 1 for kills and 1 for that objective there.
Yes, so 1 for that objective, 1 for kills. So I am up to 4 VPs, Paul is on 2, so we're pretty neck and neck at the minute, but I have grabbed myself 2 bags of gold.
Eldar turn 2. So our sweeping hawks landed over here and then scattered as they hit the deck. They dropped their grenade pack and fired las blasters over at the stern guard who had landed with Tigerius and managed to do quite a number on them. Their firepower combined with that from the rangers, who could see down from their hiding place, which took down some more. Karandras had left the lone striking Scorpion Exarch, telling him to hold Tigerius up whilst they headed in to take on the chapter master and the scout squad who are trying to get away with our precious loot. So the lone Exarch bravely attempted to charge the stern guard. He managed to survive the heavy flamer dousing he received, but then was unfortunately cut down by special issue ammunition and didn't manage to reach them, which is a mighty shame. Inside, Karandras took charge of the Howling Banshees and led them into battle against the bikes. As you can see, we managed to wipe out all the normal bikes. And we put 1 wound on the chapter master, but he has hit and run away from us like a coward, carrying his loot. I think perhaps he fed
like a coward. I beat an Exarch up in a challenge first.
I think he probably values that loot more than he values the lives of his brothers, as he's left those scouts to certain death. The fire dragons are not looking particularly happy about the chapter master being this close to them. Over here, the bikes managed to keep it swooping around that objective. They shot lots of shuriken fire into this building and managed to take out the tech marine that was manning the what was it called? Gun Thunderfire cannon.
Thunderfire.
So I managed to destroy that in the shooting phase, and the bikes in the assault phase, and I managed to retain that objective. So I scored 3 objectives this turn, putting me ahead at the end of turn 2, 5 points to 4. Let's see what happens next.
Space Marine turn 3. So, what happened this turn? All our squads over here are a little out of position as Paul's army's super fast. Everything has jetted over to this side of the board and left me on the opposite side of the Zone Mortalis, which you can't draw line of sight through very easily. So I moved my Legion of the Damned and this squad of Space Marines kind of like that way and forwards a bit, and managed to get some shots on the fire dragons. I took out both normal dragons, but the Exarch managed to look out Sir one of the wounds away and is standing there supreme after he passed the leadership check. These guys ran forwards but were very slow moving through their terrain. Over here, this squad came down from the high vantage point they were taking up there and managed to get a couple of shots in over here. They could only kill 2 Swooping Hawks with only 2 shots, but they managed to do it. Good conversion, lads. The other 2 guys are now cowering behind a building and are still scoring the objective, which is what they're going to do for the rest of the game. I moved over here. There's this jet bike squad, which is probably the most dangerous unit Paul's got left, and I completely ignored it because I don't really have anything to hurt it with. I fired the Stalker and the Whirlwind at the Swooping Hawks as well, and the Whirlwind managed to kill a grand total of 1, and the Stalker missed every one of its shots. So the vehicles are not really living up to their name at the minute. The Scouts over there, again, I had nothing to put fire into them, so they're going to be a bit of a worry also. Moving round, we move into the centre of the table where all the action was taking place. So the Scouts, they could have retreated outside the Zone Mortalis and tried to get their loot counter back to my deployment zone so it's worth more at the end of the game. But unfortunately, they would just get utterly butchered by both of these squads if they move out. So they decided they're going to lock themselves in the room in the centre. The door here you can open and close if you're next to it at any point, so you can move through it quite happily. But we've closed it for cinematic purposes, and they're cowering and they're hoping that the Chapter Master can beat up Karandras. They fired, the Chapter Master fired, and Tigurius' squad over there fired. Into the Howling Banshees, and we managed to kill all of them just with the last shot from the Chapter Master, killing off the last Howling Banshee, leaving them to fight mono a mono in the combat. I charged in, Karandras managed to trap me with his Power Claw and dealt me a wound, and then I completely flubbed my 5 Thunderhammer attacks and did him no wounds back. So he is leading this combat. He has taken 1 wound so far, I have taken 2 wounds, so I've only got 2 left, so it's touch and go who's going to win in there. I've got an invulnerable save, but he hits first and hits me on the better number because he's got more weapon skill. So it's a bit touch and go in the centre there. Let's see what happens.
Eldar turn 3. So what happened this round? We decided that we needed our jet bikes moving rather than claiming the objective. So these are a little switcheroo with the Swooping Hawks. They jetted out and shot up this Whirlwind, and with the assistance of the Fire Dragon Exarch managed to destroy it. So that was my point during the shooting phase. The Rangers continue to rain death down on these Sturmguard, but only managed 1 more wound. So they're down to 4 and Tigurius. And that was about it. We had a really good fight in the middle. So it was at the start of the round, it was 2 wounds left on the Chapter Master and 3 left on Karandras. Karandras fires his Mandy Blasters at the start of the round, taking another wound off the Chapter Master. So with 5 Power Claw attacks, I needed 1 more wound. I managed 4 hits and 3 wounds, but unfortunately his Storm Shield saved the day. He then turned around with his Thunderhammer, managed to get 3 wounds out of his 4 attacks, and Karandras was out of commission. We now need to find another willing Guardian to put that suit of armour on. That's an extra point for Mike for killing my Warlord. So at the end of my turn 3, we both had 3 turns, it's 7 victory points apiece, but Mike is currently carrying 2 bits of loot.
Space Marine turn 4. So this turn, after my Chapter Master's heroic victory over the Falzino Warlord, I decided to grab some more loot. Paul has happily taken this side of the board now, so getting loot back to my table edge isn't really an option, as most of my squads are reasonably small now, so his shuriken fire will cut straight through my power armour. So we're just going to try and hold the centre and stop Paul getting loot and force him to come into me. So Tigurius' squad managed to make it in here, and one of them has managed to pick up a bit of loot. It's this guy in the corner there. You can see he's stifled it away onto his base. Tigurius has, unfortunately, his run move didn't get him quite inside the room, so he's stuck on the door, so I can't close it. So unfortunately Paul will get to fire at me if he can get stuff there, which I'm uncertain whether he will try. This guy has moved back here with his bit of loot, hopefully sheltering him from fire, and the rest of these have all spread out. I cast Prescience on the Legion of the Damned, and using that they managed to gun down the last Fire Dragon member, giving me a victory point for killing something in the shooting phase, and obviously I scored a victory point for still holding this objective with my 2 lone Marines down there. I managed to miss completely again. Oh no, I managed to hit once and roll a 1 to wound with my Stalker. It has still forced 0 saves on the enemy this game. This squad moved forward and put 4 wounds into the jet bikes, but Paul passed all his saves, and the drop pod managed to do nothing to the scouts up there. So Paul really only has 3 units left on the board, but they're 3 reasonably undamaged units, whereas I have lots of units which are all quite damaged. But I have the free loot at the minute, which is looking key at the moment. Let's see if Paul can find a way to get in there and take them from me.
Eldar turn 4. So we are trying to get into. Unfortunately, the compound is being guarded by this out of sight chapter master. So my jet bikes could easily get in there, and if they could get in there and get a shot at him, they could probably take down his last wound. But unfortunately, he's hiding like a coward up against that wall, fearing my shuriken death. So he's hiding in there. So the jet bikes move forward a bit more cautiously. Unfortunately, they only managed to take out 2 of the number of this tactical squad, combat squad. So I didn't manage to get my kill in the assault phase, in the shooting phase. The Rangers also failing to finish off the Legion of the Damned, only taking out another 1 of its members. So to make sure we managed to get our assault phase at least, I snaked the swooping hawks out to try and take out that stalker with our haywire grenades. I wanted to try and get, if I managed to roll between 5 and 9 on the charge roll, then I would have managed to do it so that the last guy there would still have been under the objective, so I'd have scored the objective as well. Unfortunately, I rolled a 9, which was 1 too many, and the fleet put it up to a 10 rather than down. So we managed to wreck the stalker with our haywire grenades, but unfortunately the Hawks were too enthusiastic and left that objective behind. So only 1 objective scored for me this game, so it's 9 plays 8 as we go into turn 5.
Space Marine, turn 5, and it is a sad state of affairs for the poor Space Marines this turn, as we had a death in the family. So what happened? We decided, because Paul is kind of like ruling the outside of the Zone Mortalis with his Swooping Hawks, his Rangers up there, although they're not really killing a lot, and his jet bikes down here. All of my squads have more or less run into the centre here. Tigerius did a little shuffling. He has joined with the 3 Melter Marines that are there. The 3 Stern Guard that he was a part of have moved in here and picked up their own piece of loot. As you can see, it's now on the base of the Heavy Flamer guy there. They moved out slightly and took pot shots over here at the jet bikes. Didn't kill any, and the gets hot from the rounds they were using killed the sergeant. It was quite a tense moment when I rolled his leadership, because they got a loot they would drop. The scouts, the loot guy is still hiding at the back here, but they moved in this line here to put more fire onto the jet bikes. This melter gun put fire into the jet bikes. These 2 guys here moved forward and used their bolt pistols. I managed to cast Misfortune on the jet bikes, which proved really key. I think I only did about 4 wounds, and I think all of them were Wrens. So Paul decided not to jink, because he knew that he needed this squad to be active on his next turn. So it was a brave decision to make, and then all the Wrens came up. So he lost quite a lot of the potency of the squad. I'd moved forward both these Marines and the Chapter Master to here. You can see the sad death in the family was him. I charged first with the Tactical Marines, and again Paul made a brave decision and decided not to overwatch those and hope I failed the charge, which I duly did. The Chapter Master then went to charge him, and he cut him down with overwatch fire from his shurikens, because he got a pseudo-rending on me and I failed my free-up saving throw. So the Chapter Master has gone down, leaving a loot out in the middle of nowhere. So end of my turn 5, I got 1 victory point for these Marines over here. So I am on 10 and Paul is on 8. I have 1 piece of loot being held there by the Flamer Marine and 1 piece of loot being held there by the Scout. So the game could end on Paul's turn, but it's still winnable by either of us quite easily. So let's see what happens.
Eldar turn 5. So in order to try and enact a victory this turn, I would have needed to make one of Mike's units drop its loot, get loot myself, and score all 3 victory points for the objective and the kill in the shooting phase and the kill in the assault phase. Unfortunately, we didn't quite manage quite such glory. The Rangers are now completely out of target, so they've moved down from the building. If we get to turn 7, they might be able to score a point from that objective over there. The jet bikes, who we've asked so much for this game, continue their heroics. They moved up so that they're all nicely lined up here and shot down the 2 Stern Guard who are holding that piece of loot, securing the make Mike drop his loot part of the turn, and managed to pick up the loot that the Chapter Master kindly provided us with. So they managed to get that as well. And they killed a unit, so that we needed to kill a unit in the assault phase, which wasn't going to happen. The Swooping Hawks tried to get the kill in the shooting phase as well, in case the jet bikes didn't. They strung out again and got some las blaster shots at this tactical squad, reducing it to 1 man. They then needed a 3-inch run phase move to get back on their objective again, but despite 2 efforts, I couldn't roll a 3, so they didn't manage to get on their objective. This is important because that means that at the end of the turn, the score is 10 plays 9. If the game ends, we'll both score 3 points for loot, which means the game will end with Mike on 13 and me on 12. If they got on the thing, it would be even Stevens. Let's see if the game ends.
So a game ends on a 1 or a 2.
In the courtyard.
In the crossroads. It's a free. The game continues.
We've got a turn 6 coming right up.
Space Marine turn 6. So we all know what we're trying to do now. Get as many loot as possible and stop Paul from killing me. So in here, my squad of 5 Space Marines that had come in that door over there decided they needed to run forwards. He needs to get an 11 to get inside the room to pick up his own piece of loot. They only got a 9, but luckily that left him in base-to-base contact with the loot that had been dropped by the Stern Guard. Because we had said that we can pick up loot at the end of different phases than just the movement phase, he was allowed to pick it up after he ran, so he's got that. The scouts, deciding that discretion was the better part of valour, have hidden more or less all of their number behind this nice hefty wall, so Paul can't make a morale check. He can only kill this one guy that he'll be able to see. These guys wouldn't really be able to go and get some loot because they can't run because they're slow and purposeful, so they move down the side here and they managed to take out one of the jet bikes. I'd cast Prescience and Misfortune this turn with Tigorus, which is quite nice. His squad fired, I think I managed to kill maybe one other jet bike with combined fire of his squad and the drop pod over there, and then we charged on in. Combat was a bit of a slap fest that didn't do much. Paul didn't kill any of mine, and I managed to barely kill one of his jet bikes, but it was enough. He failed his leadership by 1, and the jet bikes have taken off round to there. They dropped their loot on the floor, which Tigorus has happily picked up. As one of the other rules we have is that if you beat up a unit in combat, you're allowed to pick up a loot they drop. So that's quite nice. So at the end of my turn 6, I have a loot here, and a loot there. But I only gained 1 VP for the turn because I didn't kill any of Paul's units because his jet bikes are still actually alive. So I am on 11 and Paul is on 9, but I'm well ahead in the loot stakes. Let's see if Paul can gather some of them back.
Eldar turn 6 and we are resorting to desperation tactics. Luckily our jet bikes managed to rally, so we moved more rangers down and out of the building into the line of fire of this drop pod's Stormbolter, but oh well, needs must. These popped 3 inches back round the corner and the Swooping Hawks all moved in, and we poured all of our firepower into Tigurius's tactical squad. Unfortunately, that resulted in only 2 kills. So, oh no, that's not true. Everyone other than the jet bikes shot at that squad, doing 2 kills. The jet bikes managed to get my shooting phase killed for the round by taking out the lone tactical marine who's caused me so much trouble. Then the Swooping Hawks in their fury launched an attack on Tigurius's squad, raining down Hammer of Ratha attacks and furious blows, doing 0 casualties. Tigurius then attacked back, killing 3 of them, but they held firm. So at the end of turn 6, I've got 10 points and Mike has 11. But if the game ends, Mike will get another 3 points for the 3 pieces of loot that he's carrying. Where's the other piece? Oh, there. Putting him on to 20 versus 10. So a 3+ the game ends. Was it 3+ or 3 less than? No, it's less. It's 3 or less.
It's 3 or less.
Yeah, so there is a turn 7. Sorry about that.
It's coming down to the wire here. So the only thing that really happened this turn was I moved my 2 squads that were holding loot. The scouts moved back so they were completely covered by terrain, and these guys moved in to block off the area so Paul couldn't get in, and my guy with the loot is at the back. This was a mistake, as I shall show you in a moment. Combat over here. I managed to get my 2 Legion of the Damned over, and we charged in. We went through the combat. Paul managed to do no wounds to me, and then Tigurius managed to batter 2 of the Swooping Hawks to death, and the rest of the Space Marines, even though they were prescienced, failed to hit anybody and didn't hurt anyone. Paul made his leadership check with his lone remaining Exarch, and then remembered he had hit and run, which was a bit annoying. So the Exarch then leapt out of combat and ended up here. He has a jump pack, so he can walk straight over the top of my guys, shoot my guy who's holding loot in the back, and pick up his own loot, which I'm not too happy about. So let's see if he can manage to do it.
Okay, it's turn 7. This is the last turn of the game for sure. The Eldar are out of options and they're out of tricks, so it's time for desperation, do or die manoeuvres.
They're never out of tricks, the Eldar.
The swooping Hawk Exarch, as Mike said, launched his cunning plan, gracefully swooping over the heads of these gormless tactical marines who landed amid the loot, quickly scooped some up, and then casually tossed a plasma grenade over his shoulder. The plasma grenade managed a direct hit, causing 5 wounds, and one of the power armor fails, which means that the tactical marines had dropped their loot. So that's +1 loot to me and -1 loot to the Space Marines. We still were losing at this point, so we still needed some more desperation tactics. The Rangers moved up and shot up the Tactical Marine Antigoras. He's not there, is he?
He's dead.
Which didn't do anything at all. All armor saves made. The jet bikes moved round, as you can see, and poured not another round of shuriken cannon fire into them. Again, all their armor saves held up. So it really was desperation time, and the normal Guardians had to charge in on their valiant steeds to try and take the loot from Tigris by force. We charged in. We managed to get
one hammer of wrath
kill on the normal Space Marine, and then one saving throw required on Tigris. Tigris was only down to 1 health point though, because of various perils of the warp.
Perils of the damn warp.
So on the last possible die throw of the game, his power armor finally failed him. Tigris went down.
Oh.
This meant that I managed to pick up Tigris's loot and get the victory point for killing his headquarters and get the victory point for killing something in the assault phase. So the final results on the doors are 12-12. I got 2 more this turn, and I can now control 2 pieces of loot. One in the loot room itself, and one the rider's gallantly given up his seat for the loot counter, so that we can take that to safety. So, and the scouts are the only Space Marines still holding loot. So the final scores when you adjust for loot is 18 to the Eldar and 15 to the Space Marines.
Well done, mate.
A historic victory.
You were pulling out some really intricate moves in those last couple of turns.
That was the last possible chance we had to try and eke out something.
Oh, that bit there where I left space behind. I should have just moved to the back of the room.
So, yeah,
But I didn't want you to be able to move in front of me to pick it up.
Yeah, you forgot about the jump pack.
Yeah.
So that was really no holds barred. I really enjoyed that.
Because by about turn 4, neither of us had much left.
No.
As useful units, so we're all using kind of like squads of 3, 4, and 5 to do stuff.
You had loads of little squads who were all camped in the Zone Mortalis.
Because at that point, because I had the free loot, I felt hold it and wait for the game to end, but it didn't end.
Yes.
And I think got punished for not moving forward and dealing with your squads and just trying to keep them back. And
you slowly whittled them away, but I managed to end up with 2 still fairly usable squads in the Hawks and the bikes.
And the jet bikes did so much this game.
Oh, unbelievable!
Doing everything.
I only ever really normally take 3 jet bikes as a little run around, sort of doodling around unit. So a unit of 9 with a warlock is a bit of a revelation, really. They can really get serious amounts of work done.
They were putting fire down. Hammer of Wrath's useful. They're pretty survivable. They were just really good.
Yeah, I don't recommend the Hammer of Wrath unless you really have to, though.
No. Well, it worked at the end there. And how many loot counters did we get out? Because when I was making up the mission, I was unsure how much loot would get out, so I
think 4 bits of loot got picked up.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 bits of loot made it out of the Zone Mortalis, and one of them got passed around to 3 different squads on its way.
And the jet bikes held it twice.
Yeah, because they dropped it, didn't they, when they ran away? Yeah.
So it was the chapter master brought it out, and the jet bikes picked it up, and Tigris beat it off the jet bikes, and the jet bike claimed it back off them.
Yeah, I feel at the time when I charged my jet bikes out, my chapter master out, I was being a bit cocky if I'd have stayed back. But then the game went on to 7 turns, so
yeah. No, you were right to sort it out, because otherwise I was going to slowly.
Yeah, I thought I'd have to take out the jet bikes.
I knew I needed the game to go really long, so I kind of planned for it to go long, and then luckily it did. So that was quite good.
As far as useless units go, my Stalker didn't do anything all game. Other than give you a VP.
The Stalkers was worth exactly 0. I think my least effective unit were my Rangers, who survived to the end but never really dealt very much damage. They killed a few units.
Yeah, they killed a couple of them.
Killed some Stern Guard. I think they killed a Legion of the Damned at one point. Picked off a couple of guys after they moved out. I probably should have started moving them a bit earlier.
I very much concentrate on your warp spiders at the start of the game because I really dislike them.
And they would have been awesome in this mission.
Yeah, they'd have been so good in this mission, so I really went all out for them. But that did end up putting my drop pod well out of the fight after its bit of a scatter off because I'd gone for the warp spiders over there.
This is probably already a very long video with 7 turns, so we will call it a day here. Thanks very much for watching.
Thanks again, mate. Well done.
Yes, and see you next time.